beyond our wildest imagination. Lord, you have put us in this world for the purpose of reflecting your glory and your majesty. And I pray that we would do that. And Lord, some of your servants are sick tonight and facing some extreme challenges. And my prayer is that you would just simply roll your sleeve up and be God. Nothing is too hard for you. Absolutely nothing. No disease is insurmountable. No situation is uncontrollable. To us, yes, but not to you. And I pray that you just get the attention of folks by meeting their needs, and may they turn and worship you and praise you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Well, tonight, this is the chapter we've been waiting for a long time. And let me brag on you and tell you thank you. This has been a long book, and I'm aware of that. And this is, it has not been fireworks necessarily, but it's just, I think it's necessary to go through books of the Bible so you can know what the Bible says on every level. And this is the conversation that Job has been demanding. It's not going to be what he thought. It's not going to be what he asked for. But he's finally going to get a conversation with the Lord. He has huffed and puffed his way through how many chapters now? Telling God he had no right to do that, and he's robbed me of justice, and just chapter after chapter he has called the Lord out to meet him. Well, here he is. We're going to run into him tonight. Christopher Morley said one time, quote, "I had a million questions to ask God, but when I met him, they all fled my mind, and it just didn't seem to matter." The storm that Elihu has been describing finally broke out. And it was more than just a meteorological event that is going to take place here. It would be the stage from which God is going to finally break his vocal silence. And he's going to speak to Job. For the first time in the book, God speaks to a human being. Now, we're in chapter 38. And finally, God's going to speak to a human being. He spoke to Satan in the first couple of chapters. And the Lord is going to answer all of Job's questions, but his answer is not going to lie in a theological explanation of why it happened. As a matter of fact, God's not going to address Job's suffering at all. He's not going to say anything about it. And that's the thing Job's been so ticked off about. I want to know why this is going on. And so the Lord just ignores it. These four speakers that we have heard take up so much time here, they have not provided what's about to be provided in chapter 38. And that is this: not an explanation about God. We're not interested in theological propositions, but the Lord's going to reveal himself. He's just going to unbutton his jacket and say, this is what you're dealing with. And it's going to have an amazing effect on Job. And the turning point in the book is when God just simply opens his really frightening power to God, or to Job. And it humbles him to the point of silence. Now, the first thing that's going to happen, Job's just going to shut up. Now, he's not broken, he just shut up. And then a little while later, he's finally going to get broken. And when that happens, the Lord does something significant in Job's life. And so, finally, God's going to be able to do something that these other guys were not able to do, and that's shut Job up. He just continually has yammered and yammered and yammered and huffed and puffed, and finally, now he's just going to hush. The famous Swiss psychologist, Dr. Paul Tournier, wrote in his book, Guilt and Grace, quote, "For God's answer is not an idea, a proposition, like the conclusion of a theorem. It is himself. He revealed himself to Job. Job found personal contact with God. And this is going to answer all of this man's questions. And so we prefer, I think I probably can speak to the whole crowd here tonight. Don't you prefer the Lord to speak out in the daylight, in the sunshine with calm winds? We kind of like that. But sometimes he doesn't do that. Sometimes the storm is his stage. The storm is his platform. Well, as a matter of fact, you remember in Exodus 19 how the Lord spoke to Israel on Mount Sinai? Pretty frightening platform that the Lord spoke through. You remember when he spoke to Elijah in the book of 1 Kings chapter 19? He spoke from a very frightening platform. And you remember when he spoke to Ezekiel in Ezekiel chapter 1 and 2? And we studied that back last year, and how it's just this overwhelming. It's almost like God is trying to just crush you with his appearance and get somebody to just quiet down and see, this is who I am. This is who you're dealing with. Well, God does not get theological with Job. He doesn't get academic with Job. He doesn't say, well, now here's why all of this happened, Job. None of that is even discussed. But he's going to turn to the zoological portion of a test. There are going to be 77 questions on this test. And this is going to be Job's explanation. This is what God is going to do to show him, I can do anything I want to do, and you have no control over it. That's going to be the power behind what we're about to see tonight. And so what he's going to do is not only ask these 77 questions, but interspersed in these questions will be some divine commentary addressing some of these questions. And it's pretty cool. It's going to be pretty interesting because I've got some pictures of some stuff I want to show you as well. But the entire purpose of this exercise is to show Job you are totally and completely inadequate to meet with me on par. Absolutely. I am not your peer. We are not equals. And you need to understand that. And the only way that I'm going to be able to get through to you is to show you some things and to ask you some questions. And so, as a matter of fact, Job 13:32 or 13:22, his foolish boldness is now about to come to a head here. And God's address is going to be summarized in 3 questions. And here are these 3 questions as we walk through these 2 chapters tonight. Number 1, can you explain my creation? Can you explain this? And that's in chapter 38, verses 1 through 38. Basically, the entire chapter. Question number 2, can you supervise my creation? And that's 38, 39, through 39:40. And this is going to be Job's first response is going to be after that question there. And then the third question, can you subdue? Can you tame my creation? And so, can you explain creation? Can you supervise creation? Can you subdue it? Anything you can do to tame some of these things that I have created. And so the first question deals with God's power and his authority and his wisdom to bring things into existence. We have never brought anything into existence. We have never bara, and that's the word create. The Hebrew word bara means to form from nothing. Now, if you've ever built anything out of wood, you started with wood or plastic or metal, but you didn't create the wood. God not only formed the elements that he used to create things, but then he created. The second question deals with his providential care of the creatures that he made. It's one thing for God to create, but then he's got to sustain. See, it's one thing for you to buy a car, but you got to maintain it. You got to change the oil and the tires and get this checked and this repaired and that replaced. And so who supervises all of this stuff? And then the third question is going to deal with 2 extinct animals. Thank God they're extinct. These are some bad boys. that the Lord is going to introduce to us, and they absolutely defied man's ability to kill them or to capture them. These were the worst of the worst, but they were God's pets. All right? So, question number one, can you explain how it got here? Look around you, Job. Can you explain? All right, look beginning in verse number 1. And by the way, Job thought for sure that he was the smartest man at the landfill. Okay? He just thought he had it all together. So let's just see. Then the Lord, that is Yahweh, and Yahweh means the Lord or the God who reveals himself. He's about to reveal himself. The Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? In other words, who's asking these silly questions, and who's making these unwise remarks? Who is doing that? And not only is he talking about Job, but he's talking about these other guys sitting over in the corner now. So who's doing that? Gird up now thy loins like a man, and the word man means hero. I will demand of thee, and thou answer me. All right? So everybody ready for the quiz? Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare, if thou hast understanding. So God operates in a realm beyond human beings. And in this first section here, he just simply asked Job, Job, explain how it works. Well, what do you mean? How does it work? How did it get here? How does gravity work? He's going to talk about wind in just a few minutes. He's going to talk about rain. He's going to talk about snow. He's going to talk about animals. And in this chapter, he's just basically sucking all the wind out of his vacuum cleaner bag. That's what God's doing right now. So that there's going to be no answer. Job has no answer to any of this stuff. And so the Lord is going to compare himself to a building contractor. All right, we're on the building site, and so what we've got to do is what Jamie loves to do. We've got to push some dirt around, and we got to lay out the corners. We got to dig the footers. We got to pour the footers. We got to put the wall. We got to build on the site, and so the Lord is going to compare himself and ask. By the way, Job, when I was there doing all this, I'm looking. I didn't see you. He gets kind of sarcastic with him, but it's a divine sarcasm. Nothing wrong with what's about to happen. He's just trying to make Job understand you really didn't know what you were talking about, okay? So, who laid the measures thereof, or the proportions? The earth is 25,000 miles in circumference. That means it's what, 12.5 radius? Why? Why not 80,000? Why? You know you can put 1 million earths in the sun? Why? Why is the sun that big? Why is the earth this small? Why is it the third planet from the sun? Why? And so he's just asking him some questions. There's wisdom behind it. We just know what it is. If thou knowest, or hath stretched the line upon it, who has drawn the dimensions? Job, were you there? I don't remember seeing you there. Verse number 5. Who's laid the measure thereof, if thou knowest, or who stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Now, the word foundations is our word for footers. And the word fastened is made to sink. So, who dug the footers of the universe? Who did that, Job? Were you? I don't remember seeing you anywhere around here when I was digging the footers and putting everything together. Who laid the cornerstone thereof, Job? The earth is built. It is solid. The universe has been laid out. It has been measured. It has been constructed. It works. Were you part of that, Job? Were you on the crew? I don't remember ever seeing you on the work crew in the creation of the universe. Number 7, when the morning stars sang together. This is angels. When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. the angels had never seen anything made before. And then the Lord starts creation in Genesis chapter 1. And the angels had never seen anything like that. I mean, they'd been with God, but they had not seen anything like this before. And so they were just absolutely amazed. And wouldn't you be? To see the things that we have understood for generations and centuries to have been here forever. Well, they haven't been here forever. God created them. He put them in place. He designed them. Now, verse number 8, he's going to talk about the water and the oceans. And he says, who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth, as it had issued out of the womb? Now, the sea is kind of like a newborn child, conceived behind closed doors. Job didn't see it. Nobody saw the conception of the oceans. And so it emerges from the womb, and it's wrapped in the swaddling clothes like God's child. And so the Lord brought forth the oceans like a baby, and he tells the baby oceans, now, honey, you can play this far, and that's as far as you can go. You ever done that to your kids, by the way? In the front yard, don't go past that tree. All right, you see that tree? Don't go past that tree. And the kids, they know, don't go past that tree. And so the Lord, talking to the oceans, the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Aegean, all of these massive bodies of water. He's talking to them like a child. Now, you can't play further than that, okay? And break up it for my decreed place. It means he made shorelines and set bars and doors. Like the Lord put the oceans in a playpen and said, you can't get out. These are your boundaries. We live surrounded by water here in the state of Florida, and aren't you glad that there are boundaries? Oh, I know there are times when hurricanes come and stuff like that, and it'll push the water up, but where it eventually recedes right back to its playpen, and that's as far as it can go. And so he says, this is what he's saying now to the oceans. Hitherto shalt thou come, but no further. And here shall thy proud waves be stayed. Job, were you part of that discussion when I was talking to the oceans? And I gave birth to the oceans. I was the midwife, and I brought them into existence, and I put them in their playpen, and I told them, you can go here, but you can't go there. Were you anywhere around when I did that? Now, well, what are you going to answer? What are you going to say to that kind of a question? You're kind of like, and so now, for some reason, Job's got his wish. He's having a conversation with God, but he can't say anything. All right? Now, verse number 12. Let's talk about the sun. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the dayspring to know his place? And dayspring means dawn. Job, where does the sun go at night? See, this was in the days way before space travel. They didn't know anything. The average kid back here in the class tonight, they know more about geography and topography and stuff like that than these guys did here in the book of Job. And they didn't know how big the sun was and that it circled. They didn't have a clue. And so the Lord asked him, said, do you know where the sun goes? Are you the one that designed the rotation of the earth so that the sun appears to rise in the east? Job, did you have anything to do with that at all? Have you commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it? In other words, the earth is half lit and half dark all the time. Now, it's dark here now, but on the other side of the world, it's light. And so what he's talking about here now in verse number 13, that the light would take hold of the end of the earth and that the wicked would be shaken out of it. Men love to do their wickedness when? At night. And so the sun shakes them kind of like, you're trying to get that last little bit of cereal out of the box, you know, and you shaking that last Cheerio. And so the Lord, he shakes the wicked out of their wicked hiding places when the sun comes up, because they didn't have flashlights and all the kind of stuff that we have today. And so verse number 14 is a description, I think a very graphic, wonderful description. It is turned as clay to the seal. And it's like you've got a ball of clay, and you've got your initials stamped in it, and it's dark. And you get a flashlight, and you shine it on that, or you turn the light on in the room, and oh, that's got my initials on it. And so it's like the sun has been monogrammed with the name of God, but you can't see it at night. But when the sun comes up, it's like, oh, and the shadows disappear. And if you've ever been out in the woods, and I know you have, I've been up in tree stands many times and just thought I saw the world's largest buck. There he is. And he hadn't moved for 10 minutes. And the sun is about 15 minutes from coming up, and you got some shooting light, and you're getting ready, and then the sun comes up, and it's a scrub oak, you know, and those are limbs and leaves, and so it turns like a clay, and they stand as a garment. It's like you've got these beautiful, beautiful garments in the closet, and the closet's dark. And you open the doors and turn the lights on, oh, and then you see how beautiful the clothes are in the garment, and so in the closet. And so the Lord said, when I turn the light on, when the sun turns itself on and it lights the garments up and it lights the earth up, and you can see what's going on, and the topography of the land begins to take shape, and the mountains, you can see the mountains now. By the way, Job, oh, that's what I thought. He didn't have anything to do with it. And from the wicked, their light is withholden, and the high arm shall be broken. So there's something very purifying about light. It chases off the burglar. Now, let's go down and consider the oceans. They didn't know anything about the oceans. We do, but they didn't know anything about the oceans. We know today that the deepest spot, the deepest valley on earth that we've been able to find, and probably with all of our equipment, this is probably it, the Marianas Trench down around the Philippines. That baby is 35,000 feet deep. Now, you're talking about a valley on the bottom of the ocean that's about 6.78 miles deep. And we've been down there. We've got these special little submarine things, and man, there's some stuff down there, some stuff that we've never seen before, marine life, and some weird looking, I was just really kind of freaky looking stuff. But he asked him, verse number 16, hast thou entered into the springs of the sea? He's talking about the sea floor. Job, have you ever walked on the bottom of the ocean? You ever been down there? Have you walked in search of the depth? Well, what's his answer? No, sir. So you've never been to the bottom of the ocean? No, sir. Anybody in here? What's the deepest anybody in here has ever been? I've been maybe 30 feet underwater, and the water pressure just like about to blow your eardrums in. And I had a buddy, y'all know Danny Faulkner. Y'all know Danny. His brother he got shark bit one time, but it was with a nurse shark. And he was coming up, and a nurse shark put a big hickey on him right here on his side. And David he about had 9 calves trying to get that nurse shark off of him. But there's some stuff down there that gets you. And, of course, Job had never been down there. And he says, in verse 16, have you entered the springs of the sea or walked in search of the depth? And the answer is no. How about this, Job? Have the gates of death been opened unto thee? Have you ever been on the other side of death? Job, have you ever died? Have you ever gone through death and looked around and just see what death looks like? God knows what's on the other side of death. And, of course, Job has not. Have you seen the doors of the shadow? Have you even been close? And no. Have you perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare it. Tell me. How broad is the earth? How wide is it? Well, we know now, but Job didn't know. How is it? How far is it from that horizon to that horizon? I don't have a clue. Job didn't have a clue. So far, he's got a 0. All right? He has absolutely answered nothing as of yet. 19. Where's the way where light dwelleth? In other words, where's heaven, Job? And as for darkness, where's the place thereof? Where's hell? Do you know where these things are? And my question even to us tonight, do you know where heaven is? You know where hell is? There appears to be some biblical indications that hell's in the middle of this planet. I've never been there. I don't have any soil samples. I don't have any air samples. I don't have any photographs. I've never been to heaven. I don't know what it's like. I've read descriptions of it in the Bible. I've never been there. Again, I have no photographs. I have nobody that's been there other than what narratives we have in Scripture. And so he's asking him some of these, they're ironic philosophical questions. Could anybody even ever answer these questions? No. And that's the point. That's the whole point. All right, verse 20. That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and that thou shouldest know the paths to the house thereof. You know how to go to hell? Do you know how to go to heaven? Do you know how to do these things? No. Knowest thou it because thou wast born then? Job, were you even alive when all this stuff was put together? When I dug the filters of the earth, where were you? Do you even know where you were? You weren't there, but where were you? Or because the number of thy days, I know, it's because you are so old. You have been around so long, you watched me do this, right, Job? You saw me put all this stuff together? Now, these are embarrassing things for the smartest man at the landfill, okay? Verse 22. Hast thou entered into the treasures or the arsenals of the snow? Do you know where I keep it, Job? Where's the refrigerator? Where's the freezer? You know where the cooler is, Job, where I keep the snow? You have any idea? Do you have any idea what is in the snow that makes it so valuable? Why did I even make it snow on the earth? What's the purpose of that? And he didn't know about nitrates. He didn't know that there are covalent nitrates in the atmosphere that are so tightly bonded together that you can't break the bond of the molecules. The only way that can happen is through lightning. And then when lightning pops and breaks these molecules apart, either rain or snow escorts it down to the ground. Boom, it gets in the ground. Plants take it up. You eat the plants. You eat the animals that eat the plants. That's the only way that you can get nitrates. Job didn't know that. Job had no clue the cycle that God had created to help us maintain good health with eating the right kinds of things. And so, have you entered into the treasures of the snow, or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail? And treasures means the vault, where I keep them. Have you seen the locker, Job, where any of this stuff is kept? Which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war. These are my arsenals, Job. These are my weapons. I've got snow. I've got rain. Pretty effective weapons, by the way. Pretty effective soldiers. If I want to stop an army, if I want to start, I can do it. I've got this stuff. By the way, do you know where the weapon stock is, Job? By what way is the light parted which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? What direction is the lightning going to strike, Job? Somebody said one time, if lightning didn't zigzag, it'd be a lot faster. Do you know? Are you the one that patterns the lightning, Job? Are you the guy that does that? Who hath divided a water course for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lightning of thunder? Who has created this system? Maybe it was you, Job. I don't know, since you are so old and you've been born forever. Maybe you're the one that understands how the clouds are these big porous buckets, and they just float around, and then somehow, and maybe Job, you do this, you stop the buckets and speak, and they dump all their water out. Maybe you're the guy. Is that the way that works, Job? Do you know how this works? And of course, Job's answering nothing. Now look at verse 26. To cause it to rain on the earth where no man is. Why does it rain where nobody lives? Why would you do that? On the wilderness where there's no man, nobody. Why would you waste water in places where people didn't live? Well, one of the extravagances of God is to make it rain in the desert. What does it do, really? Every now and then it rains in the Sahara. Why? Verse 27. To satisfy the desolate and waste ground. It's like the sand and the dirt get thirsty as well, and the Lord doesn't leave them out of the water cycle. And to cause the bud of the tender herb to bring forth. That's why, Job. And he's going to tell us in this next chapter about the animals that man doesn't feed, but they feed. And well, what do they eat? They feed what God grows for them out in the wilderness and on the sides of the mountains. Hath the rain a father? What a question. Are you Daddy Rain? Are you the guy that has gendered the rain? Who's begotten the drops of the dew? Out of whose mouth, or out of whose womb came the ice and the hoary frost of heaven? Who hath gendered it, Job? Where does it come from? What system creates ice? How cold does water have to get to produce ice, Job? And when ice is solid, where is it stored? It's heavy. However, one of the odd things about normally liquids in the solid form are heavier than liquids in the liquid form. However, ice floats. I don't understand that. But verse number 30, the waters are hid as with a stone. Now we're talking about frozen water now. And the face of the deep is frozen. So we've got, how does that happen? It gets so, I don't know how often Job had seen frozen water, in this part of the world, but apparently it was available at some point. Now he's going to go way, way, way past the oceans, and he's going to go up into the heavens, and he's going to ask him some questions about planets and stars. And now keep in mind, this is the oldest book in the Bible. And so we're going to get some names of some constellations, and he's going to ask Job to explain. Now, who put them there, first of all? If something gets hung on the wall, somebody did it. And there's a purpose for it. Job, do you know what that purpose is? And who assigned it that purpose? Look at verse number 31. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades? Now, the Pleiades is called the seven sisters, or the son of Taurus. And it is in the eastern part of the world when you can see Pleiades on the horizon. It's announcing the coming of spring. The ice is going to melt, the snow is going to melt, and the trees are going to bud, and the birds are going to sing. And so he asked him this question: can you bind the sweet influences of Pleiades? Can you stop spring from coming? What can you do? It's fixing to get hot in Florida. This is probably our last cool spell this week. And then it's just going to get hotter from here. And what can we do about that? Nothing. So what do we do about that? Make sure your air conditioner works, and make sure your summer clothes are in good shape. And so you can't bind the sweet influences of Pleiades. Or, hey, Job, can you loose the bands of Orion? Now, when Orion was visible on the horizon in the eastern part of the world here, that meant that the fingers of ice and cold were gripping. Anything, well, what do you guys that live up north, what do y'all do about the winter? You come to Florida. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. You make sure that your heater works and you got your jacket, but nothing you can do about it. And so what we're seeing, Job was just being picked apart. He thought he had to have all of these answers and all this huffing and puffing, and I'm going to, God, you just wait till I see him. And so then when he does see, he ain't said a word yet. Not one word. The Lord is just smacking him down with these questions. And you notice that he has said nothing about his suffering. Nothing. Now why? Why doesn't he address his suffering? If he can't answer these questions, if Job is absolutely powerless to give any kind of indication that he knows what's going on here, do you think he knows how God governs the world of men? And the answer is no. So can you bring forth Mazaroth? And the word Mazaroth is the word that we use for zodiac. Joe, are you the one that put the zodiac in the place? You know, you've got 12 major groups, and we call them the Mazaroth of the zodiac, from the virgin birth around to Leo, the Lion of Judah. Are you the one that put those together? Did you place them where they are? You brought them forth? Can you guide Arcturus? That's the Big Dipper, or Ursa Major. Can you guide Arcturus with his sons? Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Do you know how these things orbit? Do you know what keeps them hung on nothing? Do you know what they're made of, Job? Do you know why they shine? Or can you set the dominion thereof in the earth? Are you the one? And can you explain to me how physical law works? The laws of thermodynamics, the law of precipitation and evaporation, and all of these laws, the laws of centrifugal force and all of that, friction. Are you the one that wrote the book on those things, Job? Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, that abundance of waters may cover you? Can you call the clouds like you can dogs? Can you whistle for the clouds, and the clouds come hanging around over your head, just waiting for you to tell them what to do? Can you send lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are, we're here. What do we do now, Job? Are you the one that can do that, Job? Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts? Now he's going to talk about man. He says, who put wisdom in the inward parts? And what that means is this. Who told your heart what to do? Your gallbladder? Who told your gallbladder how to gall? Who told your liver how to live? Who told your tonsils how to tonsil? Who explained to all of these organs what to do? Who told your lungs to hold oxygen, to trap oxygen? And who gave the blood its assignment? And all of these. So he says, who has put wisdom in the inward parts, or hath given understanding to the heart? Now, not only are there physical assignments that all of our body parts do, but what about Job? The heart of man understands that there's a God. Did you do that? Can you explain how man knows there's a God, but animals do not? Can you explain how man can reason, but the animals act by instinct? Can you explain the difference between those two? Who can number the clouds in wisdom? How many clouds are there, Job? Who can stay the bottles of heaven? Can you screw a cap on the clouds so that it doesn't rain? Are you in charge of that, Job? Where the dust groweth into hardness, it's when the ground gets hard and cracks because there's no water, and the clods cleave fast together. It gets hard as Japanese arithmetic. Y'all have seen that. Wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion? Job, who feeds the lions, by the way? You feed your family and you feed your stock. But who feeds the lions? Do they come to your house and you give them food every day, or fill the appetite of the young lions? When they crouch in their dens and abide in the covert to lie in wait? Who provided for the raven his food? When his young ones cry unto God, they wonder for lack of meat. Job, are you the restaurateur that prepares the meals for the animal kingdom? How do they get fed? Millions of animals every day. They got to have water. They've got to have meat. They've got to have seeds. They've got to have grain. There's got to be a system that continually provides this for them. Job, can you explain how that operates? And you notice so far, there is no answer. Verse 139. Now he's going to get into the subject that is most private. Anna, let's see if, I may have to, never mind. It went to sleep. Tired of hearing me talk, I guess. The most private aspect of the lives of the animal kingdoms, mating and calving. You know, we still don't know when, how, or where great white sharks mate. And look at all the equipment we've got. We don't know where they go. We don't know how they do it. We've never seen it. We've never seen a great white shark born. And so there's still a lot of mysteries about that. And this was, now keep in mind, way, way, way before the days of scientific exploration and advanced zoological knowledge. We can put cameras on these things now. And you put I think one of the coolest things is when they put a camera like on a goose or a duck, and the thing just fly, and it's beautiful. You know, the camera just zooming around. And so all of this advanced knowledge these guys didn't have. And so he's going to ask some questions now about the zoological portion. This is the zoological portion of the test. He says in verse number 1, knowest thou the time when the wild goats, now the term wild goats is an ibex. Okay, now I've got a picture one here in just a minute. These are incredible animals. Of the rock, do you know when they bring forth? Do you know when these animals disappear? When it's time to calve, they're gone. You don't know where they go. You don't know what they do. You've never seen these things calve. Can you mark when the hinds do calve? Do you know when this happens? Let me show you. Okay, the remote is stopped, unfortunately, it says. So just take us through it. Now you just do it up. I only got like 3. So this is a mind-blowing picture, what you're about to see. And God has designed these animals so they can do what you're about to see. I want you to look at, especially the one on the left. That is a sheer rock wall. And that ibex is walking that wall. Job, did you show him how to do that? Did you train him? Did he go to your gym? And then the one on the right it's a close-up. But I want you to look. There is nothing to hold on to. I saw a goat. Somebody posted a video of a goat climbing down a palm tree. And that palm tree was just like this. And that goat was, they've got hooves. They don't have hands like monkeys. But he hoofed his way down. That was a 30 or 40-foot palm tree. You know, and I'm thinking, oh, my word. Who showed him how to do that? And so he says, do you know when they mate? Do you know where they mate? You ever seen one have the calf? Canst thou number the months that they fulfill? What's the gestation period of an ibex, Job? You know? Does anybody here know the gestation period of an African elephant? 22 months. She carries that baby for 22 months. Ain't you glad you're not an elephant? Exactly right. Thank you, Anna. All right. So, now verse number 3. They bow themselves. Now we're talking about she's about to give birth. And she'll squat on her hind legs to get that baby closer. Thank you. To get the baby closer to the ground. So when he falls, he doesn't fall the full distance from her flank down to the rocks. And so she squats to give him just a short drop. And so they bow themselves. They bring forth their young ones. They cast out their sorrows. In other words, they have labor pains, you know, just like a woman does. And so when they cast out these sorrows, she's having the calf now. She's dropping that calf. Their young ones are in good liking. They grow up with corn. They grow up knowing where to eat. Who teaches a calf what to eat? A cow. Let's say we got a bunch of cows around here. Where does that calf learn not to eat sugar daddies and cereal and beef sticks? How sick would that be, huh? Do they watch their mom? They watch They watch the other cows around them, and so we don't have anything to do with that. You don't have to tell a calf what to eat. And so they grow up with corn. They go forth and return not unto them. Even the animals know to leave home. You know, you leave home. You eat on your own mountain, all right? Mom and Daddy did all they can do for you now. Don't live in the basement anymore. Just go make your own living. Who hath set the wild ass free? Now, the wild ass is an onager, and here's a picture. By the way, that's an adult male ibex. Isn't that beautiful? That is absolutely gorgeous. That'd be so nice on the wall. Mm-hmm. Now, this is an onager. An onager is a wild donkey. You could not catch one of these, and they were absolutely useless. You couldn't ride them. They wouldn't pull a plow. As far as man is concerned, absolutely useless. But they live out in this wilderness area. Matter of fact, we're going to find they live in salt flats down around where the Dead Sea was. And they made a living down there somehow. Any little old green thing they saw, they ate it. We didn't feed them. So who has set the wild ass free? Who gave him this spirit right here? He's not a herd animal. He's not a domesticatable animal. He's not a horse. He's not even the donkey that you can domesticate. That's not this one. That's another one. Who has given him? Crocodiles, for instance. Who has given the crocodile, don't mess with me, I'll kill you? You notice that people don't have crocodile pets. Maybe some weird folks do, but you know what I'm talking about? They're not real cuddly. So who set the wild ass free? Who loosed the bands? And that means the reins or the rope. Who, and this is kind of symbolic, who just threw his reins off and told him to get gone? Who did that? Who gave him this nature? Well, God did. Job didn't do this. Whose house I have made the wilderness, and the barren land his dwellings. And the word barren there is referring to the salt flats. And so he lives where nothing else can live. There's a little bit of grass every now and then, and he'll make a little bit of a living. He scorneth the multitude of the city. They don't hang around people. Noise. They don't want to be around anybody. Neither regardeth the crying of the driver. And we're talking about like a farmer would put a harness on his mule or his horse, and hey, he doesn't do that. This is not the guy that you're going to get that kind of work out of. He don't work for you. You can't catch him, and you wouldn't want to catch him anyway. The range of the mountains is his pasture. That's his pasture. And searcheth after every green thing. Anything that he can find to eat, that's what he's going to eat. That's what? Yep. That's exactly right. Verse 9. Now we get you're going to get a little odd here. We're talking about something that there is no such thing as this, but I'm going to read you a little bit of information here in just a second. But we're talking about now the unicorn. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee or abide by thy crib? Now, the unicorn is where we get the word one horn from. And it's the word in the Hebrew, unicorn, is a rimu, R-I-M-U. And a rimu was, thank goodness, this is an extinct ox. It was a wild ox. Their horns were so symmetrical. If you looked at them from the side, guess what you saw? One horn. Okay, so it looked like a unicorn. This thing was a monster. And they are at this point extinct. Now, let me read a little bit about the, it's also in contemporary language, it's called an aurochs. And here's what, they've been extinct since about 1627. And Julius Caesar describes an aurochs in his Gallic Wars, what he wrote, a little below the elephant in size, and the appearance, color, and shape of a bull. Their strength and speed are extraordinary. They spare neither man nor wild beast which they have espied. Not even when taken very young can they be rendered familiar to men and tamed. The size, shape, and appearance of their horns differ much from the horns of our oxen. These they anxiously seek after and bind, talking about people now, they bind at the tips with silver and use as cups at their most sumptuous entertainments. We don't have this animal today, all right? Zerimu, this huge, nearly elephant-sized ox. You wouldn't put him in the barn, all right? You wouldn't feed him out of a crib. Canst thou bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow? Can you put a yoke on him and plow with him? And can he harrow the valley? And the word valleys there means furrows. And so is this guy, you're going to walk behind him and he be real gentle? And no. Will you trust him? No. He'll kill you. Because his strength is great? Or wilt thou leave thy labor to him? Wilt thou believe him? Will you trust him? That he will bring home thy seed and gather into thy barn. Is this going to be just an old regular workhorse? Or work oxen in this case? And you take him home at night and hand feed him and rub him down? I said, no, that's not this guy. Yes.
This is an Indian.
Yeah. There are some folks that say this is rhinoceros.
That is called Rhinoceros unicornis.
Yeah, it's one-horned. But this is a one-horn deal, and he'll hurt you too. Yeah, he's a bad boy too. He's a bad boy too. Yeah. Now let's look at the bird. We got. Gavest thou goodly wings unto the peacocks, and the word peacocks is stork. Storks are so graceful when they fly. They got beautiful wings. How about the wings and the feathers of the ostrich? Oh, that's right, Job. They don't have wings, or they can't fly. They've got these great big feathery wings, but they ain't doing anything with them. The stork, on the other hand, has got these great big feathery wings, and he can fly. Did you have anything to do with that, Job? No. Now, ostriches are kind of famous for being, what's that Hebrew word? Stupid. Yeah, they're not a real bright bird. Which leaveth their eggs in the earth. You know, they don't build a nest. You know where they lay their eggs? In the dirt. Yeah, it's right there on the dirt, right on top of the ground. And the sand warms them and warmeth them in the dust. So they know where to lay them. And forgetteth that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them. She's not thinking ahead. Maybe I ought not put it out here right in the middle of the highway. Maybe I ought to hide them up in the bushes. No, she doesn't do that. She's hardened against her young ones as though they were not hers. And as a matter of fact, many of them aren't, because female or hen ostriches will lay their eggs all in the same pile. And so one mama ostrich does not recognize her eggs. And so this is actually scientifically accurate here. She's hardened against her young ones as though they were not hers, because some of them are not hers. Her labor is in vain without fear. If I step on that egg right there, that may be my egg, but how well? Oh, well, you know, she's just like all that labor that I went through, and then boom, I'm going to step on it. Because God hath deprived her of wisdom. Neither hath he imparted to her understanding, Job, just like I didn't impart wisdom to you to understand the way I govern the affairs of men. He was as dumb about what was going on in his life as the ostrich is about her eggs. What time she lifteth herself on high, when she stands up to run, scorneth the horse and his rider. Ostriches can run 40 miles an hour. They can outrun a horse. Can't outfly him, but they can outrun him. Hast thou given the horse strength? Hast thou clothed, we're talking about war horse here now. Hast thou clothed his neck with thunder? And the word thunder is mane. Did you put the mane on the horse so that when he runs, it waves in the wind, you know, the beautiful thing? Canst thou make him afraid as a grasshopper? No. The glory of his nostrils is terrible, and the word glory means snorting. And so when, you know, you hear a bunch of horses and they're blowing, you know, they're snorting like that. It's a terrifying noise. He paweth in the valley and rejoiceth in his strength. He's getting ready to go to war. He's excited. He's not afraid to die. He's ready to run. He goeth on to meet the armed men. He mocketh at fear, and is not affrighted, neither turneth he back from the sword. The quiver rattleth against him. Another, his rider, he's got all the rider's got all of his equipment, the warrior, and all this stuff's bangling. It doesn't bother him. All the horse knows is, I'm going to go, and I'm going to get in the middle of this thing, and I'm going to fight. And so he hears the spear and the shield, and they're rattling. He swalloweth the ground up with fierceness and rage. He is flying. This thing is running, and so it just looks like he's eating the ground up. Neither believeth he that it is the sound of the trumpet. In other words, when he hears the sound of the horn, he knows it's time to go. That's when the gates open, and he's ready to run. He saith among the trumpets, Ha ha! And smelleth the battle far off, and the thunder of the captains and the shouting. This thing just gets excited. I mean, he's bred for war. He's not bred to pull a plow. This thing is bred to get you to the scene of the battle as fast as possible and be part of your weaponry. All right? Doth the hawk fly by thy wisdom? Stretch her wings and go toward the south. In other words, who tells the hawk, this is a kestrel, who tells the kestrel, okay, honey, it's time to get up and go south now. It's going to get colder. You need to go south. Are you the one that sets the calendar for that, Job? Do you know why they do? Do you know when they leave? Do you know why they leave? Doth the eagle mount up at thy command and make her nest on high? She dwelleth and abideth on the rock, upon the crag of the rock in the strong place. Job, you did not tell her where to build her nest. She will not lay her eggs on the ground. She'll lay her eggs where you'll never see them. So different. From thence she seeketh the prey, and her eyes behold afar off. Eagles can see 4 to 8 times greater than a human being. As a matter of fact, an adult eagle can see a rabbit 2 miles away. 2 miles away. Their eyes don't move in their sockets, by the way, like ours do. We can do that, but eagle has to turn his head because his eyes are locked in position, and they're amazing instruments, and God did that. Her young ones also suck up blood, and where the slain are, there is she. Well, no words yet. Job's swallowing really hard. The smartest guy at the landfill doesn't have anything to say yet. Next week, he's going to eke out just a little bit. We're going to finish his book next week. Yeah. Yes, we'll finish it up next week. Thank you all for being here. I know this has been an arduous journey through this book, but I appreciate your patience, and I hope you learned something from it. It's been good for you anyway, but we'll wrap this up next week. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for your goodness. Thank you for this great drama, this poem, this visual, expansive, dynamic, powerful drama that you've recorded in the book of Job. And now you're the star in these last couple of chapters. You have finally revealed yourself and showed up, and you are just absolutely taking control. Thank you for who you are. We love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.